Greetings and welcome to the Voices Lesson podcast show with Dr. PMAK, a show where I bring in ordinary people who are doing extraordinary things around the world. Today I'm speaking with Mark Elliot. Mark Elliot is the current Chief Executive Officer at the Community Development Institute that's headquartered in Denver in the United States with up to 1,000 employees. And Mark has been the CEO for the past 10 years now. Mark is a phenomenal individual that I've known for perhaps 14 years, doing inspiring work with young children. Join me today as I speak with Mark Elliot to learn about his leadership practice and the work that he is doing to leave this world a better place. Great, Mark. I was just mentioning to you just this, your approach to leadership, at least how I've seen you approach things is, you take this appreciative inquiry lens, right? So focusing on strengths as opposed to sort of having a deficit modality or a deficit, approach. Can you tell me and tell my listeners a little bit more about that approach, right? How has appreciative inquiry influenced how you've become, or your journey of becoming a leader?
Absolutely. It's interesting when you think about what causes change, and appreciative inquiry is the study of what works. And for me, it's always been a more powerful orientation, more so than what's not working, because there's just more possibility there. Okay. And it's also, for me, based in seeing people and their potential. Years ago, I was in Puerto Rico working with a local early childhood program, and there was a lot we had to do. I just met the team. We had a list of tasks, and we were just diving in. And I started to get a sense that there was a cultural disconnect of my task list and the urgent tasks we needed to do. Yeah. And I think maybe the program director asked me, "Do you guys ever eat lunch?" Because there were some real critical things that had to get done that were affecting children's services in the program, and so I realized I needed to take a breath. I had a mentor told me years ago that when I slow down, I go faster. Yeah. And I remember just taking a chance to just go to lunch with the team there. And it was just a chance to get to know them, to see what their aspirations were, what they were dealing with, and just getting to know each other. So for me, appreciative inquiry, there's a methodology around it, but a lot of it's the orientation, just seeing the potential. And for me, the relationships first are essential. Yeah. And I found that impact happens more effectively when we are seeing each other. Yep. And meeting each other halfway. Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. And I know you've been leading CDI for a number of years now, and CDI is an organization that started working particularly in building leadership capacity back in the 70s. How did you get into this work? How did you get into sort of focusing on strengthening services for children and families and taking that lens of, I like how you said, like seeing people, right? Tell us a little bit more. How did you get into this work, and what made you focus on strengthening services for children and families? Yeah, I mean, when I was in college, I had thought at one point that I wanted to pursue academia, be a professor. Yeah. I liked the university setting, but I felt this pull to community, to actually having more direct impact in my community. And so I, instead of pursuing a PhD after my master's, I just went into local nonprofit work. And my first job was with a local early Head Start, early intervention program, working with families that had kids birth to 3. And it was interesting. At that same time, my wife and I started expecting our first daughter.
Yep.
And I became a parent as I was working in a program for parents of young children. And it was like I was in the program. I mean, I was employed there, but all of the lessons around early childhood and parenting and fatherhood and all that just got me hooked because I just found impact for myself. And that just led me on a journey to really looking at how to support families with young children. And so, that process led me to Community Development Institute, where amazingly I've now been the CEO for 10 years.
Has it been 10 years already? Wow.
10 years.
Wow.
And but started just with the work of working with local community programs, building capacity for staff who are serving kids and families. And so, what drew me is just the impact that young children and parents and families can have in local communities, and just seeing the possibilities there. So I got hooked.
That's so good, right? And so when I think of your organization CDI and perhaps it's decades long history, it didn't dawn on me that it actually has been 10 years. My head had like 6-7 years of you being CEO. 10. Wow, congratulations, my friend. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
That's pretty amazing. And so 10 years of your leadership there, what have you learned about what truly make it, what does it take to create transformation perhaps that sticks both at the organizational level and in communities? What have you seen now at the helm of this organization doing all of this work? Well, what does it take to create transformation?
The longer I work in this area, the more I realize I don't know. To be honest, so there is it's our orientation to who the experts are. So if I think I always have all the answers, then I'm missing where the most powerful solutions are, which are usually with the people closest to the work, with people who are, with parents, with educators, with community members who are involved. And so that's, the more I get close to the work, the more I realize I don't know, and I shouldn't be the expert that has all the answers, but somebody who tries to mine for them, to dig in and uncover solutions that are already there and existing in a community, in a program, in a family.
That's interesting, Mark, that you mentioned that. So I go back to perhaps 2019. I'm in the middle of my doctoral program here at the University of Victoria, and I was reading a lot. That's an understatement. I was reading a lot.
Oh, you're so smart, right?
And I realized I don't know anything, Mark. I was like, what? I realized that I don't know anything, right? And so it's interesting that you mentioned that from, trying in your answering this question about, how, what creates transformation in communities. And so with that, and as you were speaking, I was like, could we just be at the crux of a transformative moment for the leadership movement, right? Where as leaders, our approach should be and must be a blank slate, right? And so with that, CDI, and I don't want to make it too much about your organization, but you've done amazing work in terms of impactful work in the US, as you have worked with, failing Head Start programs and help them get back on track and help children and families move forward with their dreams and aspirations for their communities. How then, Mark, like with this shift of, the more I'm learning, the more I'm realizing I know nothing. How do you help leaders shift their mindset to see and build on existing strengths, right? So you talk about you left university and then started working. There are younger leaders now. Some of my listeners are younger leaders that are, coming out of university with all of this book smart knowledge and ready to apply it to the world. How do you help them shift that mindset to see and build on existing strengths?
One of the most simple ways to see the world is to be curious. I found, learning and study and experience gives us context, and we need context. We have to know as much as we can know,
Yep.
So it's not that we don't try to improve our knowledge or skills or
Yep.
expertise. I think we need to constantly be improving them.
Yeah.
But work happens in relation with other people.
Mm.
And if I'm coming and not seeing or hearing them or where they're from or what
Yep.
they're experiencing, there's a big missing there. And
Mm.
so, I mean, curiosity is critical
Yep.
to and not just passive, hey, how you doing? Tell me a little bit.
Yep.
Not as like a methodology to
Yep.
schmooze somebody
Yep.
or to work a situation or something like that. But in terms of like authentic curiosity
Okay.
for who people are, what they're doing,
Yeah.
what they see,
Mm.
that is the gateway to opening up for possibilities that
Mm.
we don't see unless we, experience that. I remember the first time I went out of the country, outside of the United States.
Okay.
I grew up in, Western U.S.
Yep.
And I mean, I lived for time in Paraguay in South America, and I thought I knew Spanish until people started speaking to me, and I didn't understand anything they were saying, and it was really humbling for me to be, and I think this is a really powerful thing for younger leaders, younger people, but at any age, to just be immersed in another context outside of your own.
Yeah.
And just what happens is, if you're patient with yourself, you learn that you can't even speak the way you want to.
Yeah.
But if you just be in that space that's open and curious and looking for the good and appreciating what's there.
I love it.
I grew to love a different culture and a different context, and it changed my orientation to the world. That maybe my upbringing or my past, while it's valuable and it's one perspective, there's a whole lot more in the world out there, and I think that those are really powerful experiences that change us.
I love that, curiosity. And I think perhaps it's something that we actually need to teach more. And when I say we, those that are in academia too, right? Like actually need to teach a whole lot more in the universities, in the schools, teaching students, teaching children to be more curious, right? And not be stuck in this, this is what I'm reading or this is what I'm being taught, but to ask questions that go beyond, right? One of the sayings that I love, and sometimes I repeat this more often, is you never know what you don't know until you make an effort to know that which you've never known, right? And so it speaks into curiosity. It speaks into just this continued questioning. And I love, too, Mark, how you always frame this, and you've just done it too, right? That it's curiosity is even just looking at and appreciating the strengths that exist in individuals and that exist in communities, because perhaps it is out of that work gets done, right? And in identifying the strengths, in identifying the talents or resources that exist in communities, then perhaps programs that were seemingly failing suddenly start getting back up on track again, right? Has that been an experience with you with some of the Ep7 programs you work with?
Yeah, absolutely. And part of it is not stepping over where the issues are either. So I mean, sometimes we have this orientation, and it can come from immersion in appreciative inquiry or other kind of positive modalities that you look at. Is sometimes people think it's all warm fuzzy, that you never talk about what is, and that's not it either. Because when there are things that aren't working, you can't step over them.
Yeah.
But there needs to be a solution-based approach versus, I think traditional diagnosis is that let's find the problems and fix them.
Let's fix them. Yeah.
And that only gets you so far.
Yeah.
I think looking at what are the possibilities and what is working that we can build on, that we can replicate, that we can do more of. It frees you up in a way that we can just get stuck in what has been and just trying to patch holes in, in a dike that just maybe isn't working, so
Yeah.
so it has to be focused on change and impact. You can't, but there's a way to do that in a way that you can address what's essential and what's possible.
Yeah.
And that's where I think that's where you can move the needle.
Yeah, that's interesting, Mark. I as you speak about that, I think about the time that we first met. This is perhaps going back 14 years ago, in Hawaii at the World Forum Foundation, and you and I were both global leaders for young children then, and are still global leaders. Once a global leader, always a global leader, right? What and in the past 14 years, of course, the World Forum Foundation has held convenings or conferences around the world. How have you taken your curiosity to the different countries, right? And how have you seen programs being implemented? And I know recently, or well, not recently, maybe a year or 2 years ago, you were in Malaysia as part of that working group. How have you extended curiosity beyond your immediate horizon?
Yeah, I love the World Forum for its opportunity to meet cool people like you, right?
You call me cool. Okay.
I mean, one of the things I've loved about that context and that, network is the access to authentic relationship building for people that you may not have had a chance to really, maybe you read something they write or hear them speak sometimes, but one of the things I found, and I remember that first World Forum I attended with you. We were both global leaders. I remember being nervous, like, why am I here? What do I have to offer?
Okay. Yeah.
As well as like a kid in a candy store. Look at all these interesting, fascinating people. I wanted to just learn from all of them. And I think there's something that comes from convening people with differences that have similar outcomes. I've always been drawn to groups that are diverse, that think differently than I do, look differently than I do, they speak differently than I do, and have just a rich background and perspective. And I find myself just having better perspective, learning things and approaches and ideas that maybe I wouldn't have before. And I just find that some of the most powerful ways to change and grow is to not only just listen to, but really develop relationships with people who, are powerful advocates, but from a totally different context.
From totally different contexts. And you spoke, Mark, about sort of just the diversity and differences. And again, I think immediately about sort of the World Forum Foundation's values and differences is one of those. We live in very interesting times, right? So folks have, called it a polycrisis. Other folks have said, hey, we're living in perilous times. How do you see perhaps even the work that you do and the work, that we both do, particularly even through the World Forum Foundation, how do you see that addressing some of the challenges that we're facing, right? Particularly, I think of conversations that I'm having with a colleague in Lebanon, and a mutual colleague that you and I both know, and think about the impact of war, impact of, hunger. How do you see, work in the early childhood space, perhaps helping to address some of these issues?
Sometimes it just feels overwhelming, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to see the vastness of the gulf between what I think should be and what is sometimes. Impact happens one person at a time. Impact happens one by one by one. Now, it can get scaled as you have communities that are aligned in impact, but it's who you're standing next to, arm in arm, and what you're both working towards that moves the ship, right? I mean, that's what propels action, and I think communities of people who have similar outcomes for the well-being of children, of families, of individuals, of communities, that's where true change happens. Now, our government structures and funding mechanisms and the context we live in, the laws that we live under, those all are restraints or the context at least that we live in. But when it comes down to true impact, it's a parent or a teacher with a child. It's a family connecting to their neighbors. It's people taking care of each other. And I think that it's like a groundswell. I'm a big believer in grassroots level activism and collaboration and connection that can lead to change in whatever context that is. And sometimes the headwinds are bigger than others, and it doesn't mean that change happens quickly, but that's the only way it ever has happened.
True. Great. And I want to move away from some of this serious stuff, and speak about your travels. How many countries have you been to? Because I know you travel a lot. Half the time I'm looking for you, you're out in somewhere, either a different state in the US or you're over. Have you kept count of how many countries you've been around in the world?
Oh, it's over 30. I don't know. It seems like the more I travel, the more places I realize I haven't been. You go to a city in a country and you realize I'm only seeing this small piece. But I do appreciate the opportunity just to see friends in different contexts.
In different contexts, right? And so in all of these countries, I don't want to use the word favorite, because I know there's some mutual friends that'll be like, well, how come you never said South Africa? How come you didn't say Malaysia? How come you didn't say this is your favorite country? Which has been the most interesting experience you've had? Which country has given you the most interesting experience, perhaps? Let me say that.
You're asking, like, which is my favorite child or best friend? Yeah, I mean, there is, I will say, I think for me, the most influential is usually the first or the longest.
Okay.
So I lived for a couple of years in South America when I was young.
And that was in Paraguay, was it?
Yeah, in Paraguay.
Yep.
I lived there for 2 years.
Yep.
And then, traveled in different parts of South America.
Yeah.
So that was the most lasting, impactful change, because I felt like I wasn't just there for a conference or a friend or something like that, but I actually lived there long enough that when I came back to the United States, my English sounded a little strange, and I think that's a good sign when you immerse yourself.
Cultural immersion,
So that was for me humbling and exciting and intimidating, and but probably the most impactful international experience.
And with that, when we know all of these world problems that are going on or troubles or whatever, right? In your experience through travel to these 30 plus countries, what separates humanity? What separates people? What have you seen as, well, Patrick, here's what I've seen, here's the great divide, or Patrick, there's no, what have you seen as you go there? Because the world is in some ways in interesting bits of trouble, right? What separates us? What separates people? What causes all of this chaos or commotion in different parts of the world? And I ask this because I don't know. I don't think I've traveled to more than 20 countries yet.
I mean, you're asking deep questions. I don't know. Here's what I've learned: is people are more alike than we realize. And sometimes we forget that, and we just see differences. We hear,
wow.
I found the more I learn to love people in different places,
I love that.
The more I appreciate the context and culture, whether that, even if it's very different from my own, and that may be on whatever continent that is, from Europe to Asia to Latin America to to Africa.
Yeah.
And people are willing to laugh more than we realize. I mean, I know there's a lot of problems in the world.
Yeah.
But let me give you an example. I speak Spanish fluently, though sound like a gringo, right? But I was leading a training in Puerto Rico years ago for a group of community folks where I was working, and since I spent so much time in South America, some of the vocabulary doesn't always translate to just like across Africa or across Europe or things like that. And I was leading a training, and there were a couple times where there were a couple younger women that just started giggling when I would say something, and I wasn't sure.
What have you said? What's happening?
Do I have something on my face? And then it was a break where the director of the program where I was teaching said, "Mark, let me tell you something. This word that you're using, it doesn't mean what you think it means. That means a male body part here in Puerto Rico, and I'm sure that's not what you intended to use. So I was using a vocabulary word from a different Spanish-speaking context, but it did, and I just think you just got to take yourself less seriously and just be able to laugh when you get it wrong, or when you get lost, or when you misunderstand, because I think people genuinely, when you sit down at their table in their home, or when you're sitting by them on the bus or the subway or something, people are genuinely generous if you are. And I've experienced this in so many different countries and contexts, that if you're willing to not take yourself too seriously, people give you slack.
I love what you've just said about not taking ourselves so seriously. I suffered that for the longest of times, and it's been only in the last, and I must confess, it's only been in the last 2.5, 3 years that I've gotten to realize, dude, take it easy. Take it easy. I think what triggered that too was my son. I don't know what we were working on. And, the Gen Zs and, Gen Alphas have got their language. And he just rocked up and he was like, dude, you need to chill. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so, so what appeared to him, or at least perhaps just a simple casual thing to my dad, I took it back and I was like, dude, you need to chill. And I was like, I need to take myself less seriously. I have been serious for the longest of my times. Not that the work doesn't matter or whatever I'm doing doesn't matter, but hey, there's also fun in doing the work, right? And so as I do the work in a fun or joyful manner, I also need to create that joyful space and joyful environment for those that are around me, right? And my son was like, dude, you need to take it easy. You need to chill. Right. So yes, you're so right, that when we see people, when we see communities as we travel around the world, or even travel internally, I've been visiting some beautiful spots here in Canada, is just being able to appreciate people, appreciate communities for who they are, and learn from them, right, in so many ways. So thanks for sharing that.
It's so true that children usually call it.
Yeah.
They usually see through whatever facade we have. They call it like they see it, whether they think we look funny or,
And it goes back to that point too, Mark. Sorry for cutting you off. It goes back to that point that you mentioned earlier on about realizing that we know nothing, right? And so in that moment, my son taught me the importance of, hey, Dad, you need to chill. And I'm like, so I'll confess, my gosh, I shouldn't be doing this on the podcast, but anyway, the first thing that came to mind was, does he even know the kind of things that I have to handle? This and this and this. I've got no time to chill. There's no time to chill. So my voice was in my head, the little small voice was telling me all of this, right? But yet he was also sharing with me a profound lesson, which is, hey, it's not everything that you need to take seriously. It's not everything. Yes, your mission is important. The vision you have is important. The work you're doing is important. But hey, take a step back and just relax. And so those that have been around me closely just have noticed a whole different me. You know, I had even a sibling tell me, "Hey, you have changed quite a lot." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I am changing. Like I'm on just this path of not giving a hoot anymore. Not because the work doesn't matter, but perhaps I'm losing a whole lot. I'm losing life. I'm missing things, if that makes sense. I'm missing a whole lot of, I'm missing fun, but I'm also missing, the ability to create fun spaces for those around me, right? And so, yeah, thanks for saying that, Mark, right? That, again, as you travel, you've observed and just taken time to also listen, see people and take it easy. So
yeah, it's and you're one of the coolest people I know. So I appreciate hearing that. Maybe you're not as cool as you appeared on the outside.
There we go.
But yeah, I think there's a way to take life seriously and be ultra committed to the work we're doing.
Yeah.
While, again, not having it have to consume us in such a way that we can't sustain it.
True.
And I think that again, I think children give us a lot of really helpful feedback and help us bring perspective, especially when we live with them.
Yep.
Because we get a lot from that.
We get a lot from that, and I know your time is always under so much demand, and I am appreciative of you coming on board and just speaking with us today. And so, two last questions, and then I'll let you go. The first one being, Mark, knowing what you know now in terms of where we are in terms of the poly crisis and things that are happening around the world, and then thinking about not only just the North American child development movement. I know there've been funding cuts, there are potential department cuts at a federal level. Out of all of that, you are a strength-based practitioner, as I am too. What excites you about the future, particularly, the future of the early childhood development sector, not just in North America, but perhaps globally?
It's a really good question. Children aren't going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I know that much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really inspired by resilience that I see
in
so many people that, with whatever the challenges that they're dealing with, whether it's climate-based, whether they're funding issues, whether it's whatever the barriers are. What I've seen, and I saw this during the pandemic too, is that there's deep resilience in people who care for communities and children, and problems don't go away automatically, but people that just double down, dig deep, and keep putting one step in front of the other. That's what I'm inspired by. Even over the last 5 years with everything that's been going on in the world, I just see that resilience just getting stronger.
Resilience. Thanks for sharing that. And the question I won't get off this show without asking you is, if you were to go for lunch or dinner, or let's say dinner, with any three people, living or late, who would they be and why?
There's so many people. Nelson Mandela has always been a hero of mine. I'd love to have him come back from the grave. Professor Xavier from the X-Men, I think he would be fascinating
Yeah.
to have at dinner
Yep.
as well.
Yeah.
And, I have to say, I'd love to have dinner with you anytime, Patrick.
Oh,
So
man.
I'd like you to
You're
join me
kind.
in that conversation with Nelson and Professor X. So
Oh,
I think that would be fascinating. So
oh, you're too
there
kind.
you go.
You're too kind. Mark Elliot, you are such a kind-hearted leader, strength-based coach, strength-based leader. You inspire me each day, each time we meet. I'm always, particularly even when we're in meetings and there are sensitive things being discussed, and Mark is the person that is always cool, calm, and collected. And I'm like, how is he even keeping that face on right now? Like, how is he even managing to do that? And Mark, from me, we need so many Marks. We need so many of you, right? That are calm, that are very thoughtful, that are strategic. But even importantly, all of these things are important. But even importantly, that continue to put their heart and soul and mind to a much bigger mission, working with young children, working with communities, working with families, to ensure that young children have got a life full of possibilities. My friend, my brother, receive virtual flowers from me, receive admiration and honor for all the work that you are doing and that you have done in your career to this point. I appreciate you, and thank you so much for coming on Voices Listed with Dr. PMAK.
Thank you, Patrick. You continue to inspire me, and I appreciate calling you a friend. So thank you for all the work you're doing in the world. It's important.
Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, listeners, to listening. This is Dr. PMAK with Voices Listed podcast. Until next time, have a great one. Thank you for listening to the Voices Listed podcast with Dr. PMAK. I hope you enjoyed insights that came out of this conversation. Keep your notifications on. Our next episode will be dropping soon. Thank you and enjoy.